Well, hello, Costi.
Hey, good to be here with you.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being willing to talk about this great topic of worship. I know it's an issue you're passionate about. It's one I'm passionate about as well. You have a great story. We'll get into that a little bit later, but you're kind of an authority on the prosperity gospel, the word of faith movement, and on worship. So let's start there. Let's understand a little bit just the background of the prosperity gospel and how it understands worship and singing in its context.
Yeah, so I'll contrast it now being in the Bible church world.
Okay.
In the Bible church world, we would view worship as all-encompassing, right? Mm-hmm. Not just about music, but about the word, about service and our giving. Worship is a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And people, if they were to come to our churches that are more biblically driven and they're just coming for the music, they're going to be wildly disappointed because there's a tip of the spear that's coming, and it's the preaching of God's word. And there's worship that goes on for another 167 hours after the 1 hour in the building, so to speak. So that's worship now, proper worship, where it's a lifestyle. Worship for me back when I was in the prosperity gospel and in that movement as a whole is more of a tool in the toolbox to build my empire or build my kingdom. It's a means to an end. I'm really trying to prime people for whatever I'm going to get them to do. And then also worship is very me focused. The music is about me. Everything wants to elevate man so that the message that is about man will settle in on hearts that are already so fixated on themselves.
It's amazing because that's so countercultural to what we understand in the Bible, because worship should be focused upon Christ. It should be focused upon God, not upon that idea of creating a sensation of emotionalism, like you just kind of mentioned. Expound upon that idea. What does worship in that context of worshiping in spirit and in truth deal with in the prosperity gospel?
Yeah, so in understanding what Jesus is talking about, you could boil it all down in a sort of pithy way to say he's not talking about where we're going to worship, but maybe how, or the nature of the way that we worship. And it's in spirit and truth. And one of the most important things to do in understanding worship is to stay in balance. You have the wild emotionalism that I think we as humans have the tendency to swing to, where we're riding the highs and we're crashing in the lows. We do that in life also, where, when we're on top of the world, it's, God is good, everything's good. But then when things are bad, apparently God's not still good, though his nature is always good. I think that's an emotional wrestling match for people. And our worship reflects that, is wild emotions. They make us feel good. We feel like we're having the right worship experience when the emotions are high and we're feeling it. But Jesus is describing a balance. It is spirit. It is zeal. It is passion. It is emotion-filled expression, yes, but it is always grounded in truth. It's spirit and truth. And I think we ought to pick on ourselves, per se, if we're a little more conservative. We have the habit to swing over into kind of the frozen chosen mentality where it's just us, and it can be cold orthodoxy. And so either way, I think there's two things happening. One, we're either trying to fake power in worship by manufacturing an atmosphere and an emotion, and it's not rooted in truth. And I think you swing the pendulum the other way and you forget power. You forget the joy of being an early Christian.
You're speaking my language right now. I love it. I'm just going to talk about the emotionalism side a little bit. It's more for my own gratification. I almost feel like that's what it's bringing about. It becomes self-centered in a sense. And how is that dangerous when that worship becomes more of a self-centered rather than who it's supposed to be directed to?
Yeah. Well, we're missing the point of worship. And we are human, and we are finite, and we are forgetful. So we often go and roll back into the common denominator of self. And it's selfishness, and it's the focus on me. And just like Peter and the New Testament writers are often saying, it's not really hard, it's no big thing for me to remind you of these things. It's like pastors, our job is to say the same 50 things 100 different ways over the course of the years. We need to be reminded. Worship is not about us, it is about God. It is about high doxology, these high glory pinnacles. The glory is not about us.
Now, you're obviously passionate about this issue. This is something that's near and dear to your heart.
Just a bit.
Just a little bit. And not everybody in our audience knows exactly who and what your story is and everything. So tell us a little bit why this is such an important issue to you.
Yeah. So a couple of fun facts. I got saved by the same God as everyone else.
Okay.
By the same power. And I believe in the same Jesus. I think we've got the same Jesus. I'm pretty sure we all do. The one thing that is a little different or unique is my last name. So Hinn, obviously, my uncle is Benny Hinn, one of those faith healers on TV and all that. And I grew up in that world, right in the center of it. And I worked with him, for him. God had other plans. And through a series of events, faithful people planting the seed of the gospel, people who talked to me about the sovereignty of God, my now wife, who's an incredible woman of God, who asked me questions and was always gracious, but a lot of HMU moments, help me understand type things. So you guys talk about this, or you fly in Gulfstream jets, but the people you serve don't. And you stay in hotel rooms upwards of $25,000 a night. Like in Dubai, we stayed in the Burj Al Arab, and you preach the gospel, but you live like celebrities. How do you reconcile that? And I was forced to deal with those questions. And the more I did, I would liken them, and a pastor of mine has done this as well. He's likened it in my life to cracks in the dam. Okay. And crack after crack, eventually that thing's just gonna burst. And one day, studying for a sermon, John chapter 5, not far after the woman at the well, healing at the pool of Bethesda. I go to preach. I'm a pastor at the time. I'm thinking, man, healing, I'm a Hinn. I got this nailed. Get ready for this one, people. Real cocky and sure of myself. And in study, I was given a commentary and had no idea who the author was. Never really studied a lot of theologians. Didn't really worry about big words and stuff. Guy gives me a commentary. My pastor, he says, this will help keep the train on the tracks. The man, John records, didn't even perceive the translated word, who Jesus was. So now I'm confused, because Word of Faith Prosperity Theology says, I know who Jesus is, and I get my healing because I know who he is, and I have enough faith. I give, I say things that are declarative. I can literally control my reality, or the way we used to say it is, you can make it happen with your mouth. I turn to this commentary, and all of a sudden, the author is unpacking these truths, and he says, here is the sovereign power of Christ and his healing ministry in action. And he goes on to unpack the sovereignty of God. I start remembering people like a coach in college. I played baseball down in Texas. He used to talk to me about the sovereignty of God, never pressing in too far. Yeah. Back then I drove a Hummer and was, Mr. Hotshot, prosperity gospel lifestyle. And this guy just kept giving me truth, cracks in the dam. And so I see the sovereignty of God in action. Then the commentator goes on to say, and therein is evidence of the cruelest lie of faith healers today, that if you just have enough faith, you'll get healed. And he says, the people that these fake faith healers fail to heal are guilty often or blamed of negative confession, unbelief, not given enough money, but God is sovereign in healing. And I am just blown away at that moment. I start weeping. I repented of my sin in study as a quote unquote pastor, and the Lord transformed my life. That marked the beginning of losing my title. The godly men around me said, okay, you're not pastor anymore, you're PIT, you're pastor in training. Seminary process, guys kicking the rocks over in my life and really just analyzing things, getting into biblical counseling, walking that road. It's about a 4-year journey, just digging in. And so now everything's anchored to God's word, just like other faithful men have done for decades. And yet there are some experiences I can share. But what's more fun even now is I'm becoming irrelevant in many ways because so many other people are getting saved out of these movements. And you see young women and young men leaving schools of signs and wonders and running from it because God's saving them too. Yeah. And now they're telling their story. And so I'm excited to watch as Jesus does what he said he would do, to build his church.
You're becoming one of a mass of people.
Absolutely.
Coming out of
just one in the mix.
Now I've watched YouTube videos of your Uncle Benny. I mean, they sing some of the same songs we sing.
And beautifully.
Beautifully. I mean, they've got the large choir in the background. You've got this great rousing rendition of How Great Thou Art going on as your Uncle Benny comes out with his arms spread wide open. those songs that you sang there, I mean, how different are they to you? Like, how are you perceiving them then? Give us the before and after, kind of look at some of those even.
Well, I'm going to sing How Great Thou Art, no matter who sings it. I don't care. I love that song, and the better we can make it sound with gifted and talented people, praise God for that. However, they can also be used as tools for deception. And we often see that throughout the New Testament, where in 2 Peter 2, verses 1 through 3, those first pivotal verses of what Peter's going to talk about for an entire chapter, which is false teachers. As uncomfortable as this may seem, he says that there will be those who secretly introduce destructive heresies. That means they're going to get in what looks like the church. That means they're getting in where it sounds like the church. That means they're getting in where it even feels like the church, but it's not the church.
So you're saying essentially that our theology is going to affect our worship, and who is creating that theology even, and building that theology, and who's associated with it, shapes a lot of what we're doing.
Absolutely. I think we first have to understand that doctrine is good. Theology is good. Theology is simply, theology is not suits and ties. Theology is not old hymns and that's all we sing. Theology, literally translated, is God logic. That what my mind knows about my God. So how in the world, whether you wear a suit and a tie or a V-neck and skinny jeans, what I know about God is what matters the most. It really doesn't matter what it sounds like. I'm not really concerned about what it all looks like. I want to know where it's rooted. Where does it come from? What is the knowledge of God that is the sort of umbrella over all that happens?
I mean, there's so many people who are very sincere, sitting in your uncle's crusades and in churches that promote a prosperity gospel and a word of faith thing. How do we feel about these people who are just kind of blindly don't understand they're being deceived by some of these teachers?
Well, you asked, how do we feel about them? I think that we need to feel like they're the mission field, certainly. And we need to have, I had a older pastor always tell me, sometimes I'd go through phases where I'd get real frustrated with why people are still caught up in this. He used to say, Costi, you need to have the heart of a child and the hide of a rhino. You need to be tender and tough. And I think that's how we need to approach people who are caught up in these movements. Number one, we are firm in our theology. We are firm in the truth. We are uncompromising in it, but yet we're flexible with people. I'm walking with them. They're not me. I'm converted. My job then is to throw the rope to them. They're the mission field. I want to walk with them. Some people work it out through a process of a few years. My process, thank God nobody gave up on me. So many people are in this movement, and it's going to take patient, gentle, godly, long-suffering people who are living what Jude writes about in the later verses, like Jude 17 to 23, where he says, have mercy on those who are doubting. Save others, snatch them from the fire. And then he says, have mercy on others with fear, hating even the garment polluted by the flesh. It's three categories. You've really got these people that are doubting. I want to be gentle and patient with them and walk with them. No hardness of heart towards them, even if they're deceived. And then you've got people you need to be snatching from the burning, like Coast Guard operation. You're coming in and you're going, hey, I want to meet for coffee. You're in something that's very dangerous, and you're going in on a rescue operation. Then there's others, have mercy on them with fear. It's saying, I got to keep healthy distance.
Let's kind of go into the theology aspect. I know you love theology and the understanding of biblical things. And I've heard you talk a lot about the Christology. Particularly within the Word of Faith movement, and how that has shown itself even in its music and what it's producing. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, let's do a loving ripping off of the Band-Aid here. For me and for our church and our elders and many others in quote unquote the Bible church world, Bethel and Jesus culture are a no. We don't sing Bethel and Jesus culture. And before people's blood pressure goes up, we should discuss and dialogue openly. Here's why, if we want to really understand different positions on this. We've gone no on Bethel and Jesus culture. Number one, I have family members, one of them whom recently actually left the Jesus culture orbit. She cut an album with them, all of that. So I was in that world, in deep, family ties in it, And so let's just even take the inner workings, the interpersonal stuff and certain things, let's leave that out even. Let's just look theologically. When you look at Bill Johnson, who's the pastor of Bethel Church, Redding, when you look at the origins and the birthing of Jesus culture and Bethel music, Kim Walker-Smith and all of them that are in that orbit, being honest, not just railing on everybody, let's stay theological, not personal. Their Christology is a heretical Christology, and here's why. Page 29 on Bill Johnson's book from 2003, Destiny Image Publishing, When Heaven Invades Earth, he says that Jesus did his miracles as a man in right relationship to God, and then there's an ellipsis, ... not as God. Later on, somewhere around pages 77 to 78 and beyond, he says that Christ laid aside his divinity. Here's why they say that. Because they tell people that Jesus did his miracles as a man to show us that we could too do signs and wonders as those empowered and filled with the Holy Spirit. So come to our school, the Bethel Supernatural School of Ministry. Another guy, Todd White, who has the dreadlocks, has the Lifestyle Christianity School. My uncle has the Signs and Wonders School of Ministry. So regardless of denomination, regardless of where you're coming from, it's important we all understand the foundational and biblical truths we have to stick to as believers. So Bethel and Jesus culture are a no. It's not a debate about spiritual gifts. It's not a debate about whether God does miracles. I believe that we still serve a healing, powerful, supernatural God. I know you do too. It is about Christology. That's tier one. That's like us and maybe Mormons saying, we're pretty different. Or us and a Muslim saying, we're pretty different because of our belief about Christ.
So obviously everybody knows that the YouTube videos of your uncle throwing the jacket around and slaying thousands of people at a time and everything, it's become a joke on YouTube now, and people don't take it as seriously anymore. But the prosperity gospel and word of faith movement is still active. It is rebranding itself. How has that been happening?
Yeah.
Or where are we seeing that?
Yeah, that's, first of all, a great question, because you look back, people say, like, where did the prosperity gospel start? Or where did all this begin? And they want some, history lesson. Just go back to the book of Genesis in the beginning, when the serpent whispered to Eve and said, did God really say? Undermining the truth of God. That's ultimately where this all reaches back to. But a new generation rises up. And the enemy is very crafty, and he simply rebrands and repackages. So now what we're seeing is the less weird. The less weird. Weird didn't work after a while. I remember growing up and I stopped inviting friends to my church because it was too weird. You couldn't sell that anymore. And so what we're seeing now is the guys like, the Stephen Furticks who would hold to word of faith theology. That's not that's the blessed life stuff, the prosperity gospel. You've got guys like Joel Osteen, who they are essentially America's pastor now. Chipper, peachy, happy, healthy, wealthy. It is the prosperity gospel again, but rebranded, repackaged, no flying white jacket, no people falling over. It's just pep talks. It's motivational speaking. So the enemy is crafty. He knows how to rebrand for a new generation. And I'll link that to, with the Bethel and the Jesus culture conversation is, I think this too. I think that the enemy has used our weaknesses in biblical literacy, weak pulpits, weak churches, to allow a generation to be swept away. And so what we need to do now is raise the standard, preach the word, preach with passion, have both spirit and truth, get right back in the game, not sit around kind of in our little holy huddle worrying about ourselves and our big words, but get out there to preach the truth and go on a rescue operation for people.
It almost seems to me that one of the ways these rebranded word of faith prosperity gospels are getting their name out there, it is through the slick social media, it's through all that. But the way they're infiltrating is through their music in so many ways.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have elevation worship, you have Jesus culture. It is that subtle poison being dropped into the church without a lot of fanfare that it's coming in.
Yeah.
And it's showing up. And I know I've heard Conrad Mbewe, that a great African pastor, talk about how the number one export out of America as the prosperity gospel, but we're also these guys are also exporting inwardly within the church, and just doing it subtly. Is that something you've seen in your experience?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And music is such a strong avenue into these circles and into an entire generation, because people are constantly listening to music. We as human beings, we love music. That is important. And just like when there are false teachers being raised up, we need to have bold kind of Reformation type of preachers again, a revival in the pulpit. There has to be something in the music world. We don't need to look like the world. We don't need to act like the culture. Absolutely not. But where's the passion? There are so few bands and singers. If you just did a T-chart and said, give me all the people that are spirit and truth, give me the passion, give me something for my generation, give me something that looks like 2019, that's passionate and only full of truth, not linked to false teachers, linked to sound, biblical, passionate warrior preachers that aren't compromising. That is a short list.
Yeah.
Go to the other side and find me all the false teachers with the bold passion and the YouTube clips and the Instagram stuff and everything real rah, and then link all the bands and show me all the singers. They've got the passion. Problem is they don't have the truth. So, and I know this probably picks on our camp more than any other, but we have got to have a generation of gifted, talented, stable, doctrinally sound people and individuals. And I know they're out there. I know you're one of them. I know the Gettys are there. I know like Sovereign Grace Music and many others. I know there are some, but there needs to be not just a revival in the pulpit through preaching, but a revival or a reformation in our music as well.
Yeah. Well, our Steadfast Conference exists to support the local church, particularly in the Bakersfield area, and to encourage and bring them. And that's what we've been trying to do with this conference, is to bring the church together and to understand what God has called us to in worship. And it's been wonderful. Would you have any final words to encourage us in what God has called us to as worshipers?
Yeah. Let's keep having in our churches, or start having if we're not, good, faithful, robust, biblical dialogue and discussion. Let's try to minimize debate, but sometimes there's some good back and forth. Let's sharpen one another on what true biblical worship is and be open to change on both sides. So when we're just singing hymns and we can't sing anything else, and don't you dare add in a song that you might hear on the radio, and you keep the drummer out of the sanctuary now. I don't want none of that in my...
Well, you got that right over there.
Yeah, we got some drums in our church. So let's be open to hearing the voices and the music and the sounds and the instruments that we can use to worship God and to create a beautiful sound and aroma for Him. And then on the other side, let's be open to looking in the mirror. Are we riding the wave of emotionalism? Are we manipulating people? Are we manufacturing an atmosphere to meet our end and then saying, well, God wants this, so we must? Are we using something to justify our own desire? We want to be real honest there. So both sides having robust discussion and trying to land as close to what God has given us as possible.
Trying to balance that, as we said in the beginning, the spirit and the truth.
Spirit and truth.
Spirit and truth. Well, this has been so wonderful. I've enjoyed my time with you. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us and to share your heart on this important issue.
Thank you. It's easy when you got a Canadian brother.
We got to stick together,
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.
God bless. Thank you.